I remember my first year at LMG kind of having that I can't believe I worked here moment of this is amazing and yet what a strange job, because we were sitting around a table and we were literally trying to figure out how to break into a bank.
Hello and welcome to the Hacker Next Door podcast, where we explore the origin stories, exploits, and everyday lives of real-world hackers. I'm your host, Jeremy N. Smith. And this series is my chance to challenge stereotypes and examine the human side of this extraordinary activity and profession, who hackers really are, and how hacking really works. My guest today is Karen Sprenger, Chief Operating Officer of LMG Security, the real name for the company featured in my book, Breaking and Entering, which makes Karen the right-hand woman of my main character, the female hacker called Alien. LMG is a team of professional hackers that businesses and government agencies hire to try to break into them, to find the holes in their security. Or, if you've already been breached, they figure out what happened and how to respond. As you'll hear, Karen is warm, funny, and surprisingly cool-headed despite a job that has her dealing with crises on a daily basis. I'm grateful for all that she's taught me, and I hope you learned as much from our conversation as I did. Quick note, I didn't vet Karen's mic properly before we started talking, so you'll sometimes hear what sounds like wind around her as she speaks. My apologies. Thanks for joining me, Karen.
Thanks for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
Your job is somehow managing a bunch of hackers. What is a typical day in the office for you? How do clients come to LMG in the first place? And how many projects do you have going on at a time?
Oh, I'm going to start backwards on that. So at any given time, we have 50 to 80 active projects happening, and projects tend to go very quickly. So if we're doing testing, it's probably 3 to 4 weeks from start to finish by the time they have a finished report in their hand. And the testing is probably over a week, week and a half. Forensics cases can go longer depending on what we're investigating. So there's a lot of moving pieces. Clients find us honestly, primarily by word of mouth. They need some kind of help, and they were talking to someone who has already worked with us and said, you need to talk to these folks.
I kind of picture almost the reverse image of a police station where there's a big whiteboard with all the active cases. Is there a thing like that where it's like Jimmy and Amy are going to break into a bank today, and then Allison and Sam are cracking the art museum, and then Daryl and Samantha are going to test this self-driving car and see if they can get it to crash? Is that the sort of nature of the thing? You just turn a corner and there's some different kind of boiler room scheme or kind of criminal operation simulation happening?
It really is. Our team is very collaborative, and so a lot of the planning or the discussion about how to do these things really starts around a table. I remember my first year at LMG kind of having that I can't believe I worked here moment of this is amazing and yet what a strange job, because we were sitting around a table and we were literally trying to figure out how to break into a bank. And it's not the kind of conversation that people normally have in their office.
Yes.
But, here we had the majority of the company sitting around the table thinking about, well, should we go in as a maintenance person, or is it better to go in as a potential customer, and how are we going to get to the vault? And at the same time, that same year, I had learned how to pick locks because, if you need to get into a server and prove that you could attach a device to it, you need to be able to pick the lock on the server cabinet.
So you guys do physical breaking and entering as well as sort of remote computer. The sort of stereotype is someone, internet cafe typing a few things and going, I'm in. But you also roll in person. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is the balance there? If there is a typical mix of work or a work week, I mean, you said 80 at a time. What's 4 or 5 things that might be going on a Tuesday morning?
Well, I can give you an example just from our past week. We'll be testing a web application for a client. So they're getting ready to release it publicly. They want to make sure that they have all the vulnerabilities locked up before they do. We've also got someone on site who at that time was testing doing social engineering against a group of credit unions in the Midwest.
Social engineering meaning what?
Meaning that her job was to try to get into the vault in the credit unions and the server room without anyone stopping her.
I've heard social engineering called kind of human hacking. She's trying to sort of be in person, trick other people in person, in authority, into letting her into these privileged spaces.
Absolutely. The most vulnerable piece of any network is the human mind.
All right, those are a couple.
Yeah.
And by the way, you said this week, and I wish I should note that when we're talking, it's only Thursday now. So this is we've got a couple examples of a few days of work. What are a couple other cases you're handling this week?
We're also handling a law firm that experienced a very large ransomware attack. So hit a few hundred computers and servers in their environment. And so helping them not only contain and recover from that, but then providing incident response in terms of a forensic analysis to determine, how did they get in? Did they look around while they were there? Did they take anything? Did they leave anything behind?
And ransomware is when malicious software gets installed on your computer network and it sort of locks up your data, and then the bad guys hold it for ransom. You have to pay them to get it unlocked. Is that working?
Exactly. Another one we were working on is we had another consultant in Canada who was leading a tabletop exercise for a company. So that's where we come in and we bring in key members from the company, IT, communications, legal, executive level, and we get them all in a room around a table, and we take their incident response plan and we create a scenario for them and say, okay, your network just got hit with ransomware. What do you do? And then they walk through their incident response plan and look for holes and make sure that they could respond if they get hit with something like that.
I feel like you guys need your own branded version of the game Risk. It sounds like
that would be a good idea.
It's like you don't forget about Irkutsk. You can just sort of worry about ransomware for a bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So, does the stereotype hold of kind of hackers and you and your team being up all night staring at a green screen in the dark? Or do you, with the sort of pizza boxes piling ever higher outside the door that you never open? Or do you, with the shades drawn, of course, because you're vampires and the light would eliminate you? Or do you work like normal 9 to 5 hours?
Well, I do have people who prefer to work in a dark office.
Right on.
Okay. But I think the interesting thing is we do tend to think of hackers as antisocial people who they can only work through a screen, and that has not been the case that I've found at all. They're very focused people. So yeah, there are times when they're going to go sit and stare at a screen and get very involved in what they're doing, but they're also very skilled at explaining what they're doing or what they're finding and how do we make it right. So I'm so fortunate. We have an amazing team here that they're not only talented, but they have amazing people skills. And so they're able to work with clients and they're also able to interact with each other and collaborate very well together. It's a very supportive team to the fact that 9 of them are doing the Spartan race with me in a week and a half.
What is the Spartan race? I'm like, my calves are sore just hearing those words. I'm afraid.
It's an obstacle course race, and they have them all over the world, but the one in Montana is in the mountains up by Big Fork, Montana.
It's more Spartan than usual.
Yes, and it's part of what Spartan calls their mountain series. So there's a lot of climbing up and down mountains involved, and then so you cover 3 to 5 miles, and you do 20 obstacles along the way, which could involve anything from hoisting 90 pounds of sand up 20 feet on a rope, or climbing a rope, to wading through muddy water, ducking under a wall. And I did it last year. It was kind of my reward challenge to prove that I had completely recovered from a bout with breast cancer. And this year they decided that they wanted to join in the fun. And so we're all going to go out and do that together. Get muddy.
Wow. Congratulations. You're definitely challenging the sort of pocket protector.
Yes.
I can't have my glasses break
Yeah.
stereotype. So,
Yes.
What do you look for in hiring a professional hacker?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if they're going to run this race with you, they're going to need to be able to lift 90-pound bags of
It
sand,
is.
I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
But we'll put that aside for the moment because it's this interesting combination, I would think, of sort of you need someone who's devious and also responsible.
Yes.
How do you manage someone whose job is to break the rules?
I think part of it is you're looking for people who are very ethical. I mean, everything that we do in this job, we have access that no one else should or would have. We have access to all kinds of information. So we need to be assured that they're ethical people and they're going to handle it appropriately. So, we're not looking for someone who has been arrested 5 times and suddenly decided, maybe I'll try the other side.
Well, they're only arrested because they get caught.
Exactly. So they're not good enough. Oh, no, but I think we're looking for people with a healthy sense of curiosity, because really that's all hacking is it's someone who's curious. We're curious. How does that work? Or why does it work that way? Or I wonder what would happen if you did this. That's really all hacking is. And so we're looking for people with a great sense of curiosity, very ethical, but also wanting to learn, because cybersecurity changes so quickly. You need to be able to learn constantly and enjoy it. There's never a day goes by that we don't learn something new. And then we also look for people who have people skills, because really the actual hacking is only about 20% of the job. The rest of it is, writing reports that explain to our client exactly what we did and what we found and how they can fix it. And it's collaborating with your coworkers on how can we best deliver this project, or how can we meet their goals. So we really look for someone who can work with people and contribute.
Do I understand right that one of your sort of specialties, obviously a lot of your staff is doing the day-to-day stuff and you're managing it, but you are pretty intimately involved often in these ransomware negotiations. And I wondered what that means. And does that mean you're actually talking or communicating with the criminal hackers, the black hat hackers? And I want to get a sense of who's on the other side of the world, or the other side of the network, or the other side of the other side of the block. Maybe the neighbor that doesn't know you're a hacker, you don't know they're a hacker either.
Yeah, I am I guess you'd call it lead hostage negotiator. Not something I ever anticipated doing with my life, but what that means is that when a client is in a situation where they have no other choice but to pay a ransom, so in other words, their backups are corrupt or they got encrypted during the attack as well, they decide that it's more beneficial or necessary to pay a ransom. And so my job is to email the attacker, because they always leave a note behind telling how to get in touch with them, and then to negotiate with them what it's going to cost to actually bring the matter to a close and get their data back.
Wow. I mean, I'm just thinking even if I said, okay, I'll pay, and someone says, okay, I need $80,000 in Bitcoin in the next 16 hours. I'm like, I don't, it's in a weird way. I'm like, I feel like it would be easier for me to get $80,000 in cash on in sort of unmarked bills and bags that I could leave under the bridge. I don't actually how do you get $80,000 in Bitcoin in 24 hours? Is that something you have to know how to do too?
It is. Yeah. So we work with a Bitcoin broker who we know, who helps us get them quickly, because that's the difficulty of people finding themselves in that situation, is even if they can figure out how to buy Bitcoin to begin with, most of the legal ways of getting Bitcoin require that you have built up some sort of a history of buying Bitcoin. So you can't just open an account and say, I'll have 80,000 in Bitcoin. You have to, they'll give you like $100 limit the first day, and then you'll move up to 300 or 500 or 1,000, over a period of weeks. So we work with a broker who is also a miner of Bitcoin and, has built up that kind of a background, and now, of course, is one of the leaders, and then helps us acquire the Bitcoin. But before we even get to that point, I mean, something that people often don't think about is we always ask for proof of life. Meaning, how do we know that you can unlock these files? That, you didn't just somehow find out that this company is dealing with this and say, oh, well.
Right. Because anyone could email you and say, I'm the kidnapper.
Yeah. And so for what we generally will do is we work out an agreement with the attacker that will send them 2 to 3 innocuous files, because they have all kinds of rules now about they won't decrypt spreadsheets and so on, anything that might be important. And then we send them these files and we ask them to send them back decrypted so that they prove that, yes, they have the key, and yes, that they can decrypt them. And then, so that's kind of step one is, hey, I'm here to negotiate. I'm here to bring the matter to a quick close. How much are you asking? And prove to us that you can do this first. And I think the thing that has amazed me over the few years of doing this is we often hear in presentations and so on that, attackers think of this as a business. And that is so apparent when you're dealing with ransomware, because some of these attackers, we joke, the level of customer service is amazing.
Better than your bank?
It is in some cases. There was one I was dealing with who, when we got all done and he sent me the key to decrypt the client's data, the note he made at the bottom was, he told us step by step how to do it. He kindly attached files with screenshots and had, very
like a manual.
Yeah, he'd very professionally drawn arrows and circled things just like a computer manual to show us how to do this.
Wow.
And then at the very bottom, he said, once you're done, scan your data. And he said, and run antivirus. It's very important. And, I just thought, well, that's odd coming from someone who's took advantage of this poor company. But it's gotten even more so in just the recent past. I mean, we've had recently cases where in one case, when they paid us, the criminal followed up with, let us know how it goes. And all I could think of is,
Yelp reviews.
Yes, exactly. Here's a link to our customer service survey.
Well, I guess there is this incentive, right? They want it. If you Google, if I pay, will it work out for me? They want the answer to be yes.
Yeah.
And they want as little as friction as possible. They're probably doing, it's all automated. They're probably doing, thousands of these at a time. And if you're good to work with, maybe they want to make it good to work with you. I mean, it does sound like organized crime. Do you have a sense? Is this happening in English, or where are these people from? Do you are you able to trace that with your forensic background or any other kind of thing?
Sometimes we can. I mean, a lot of the professionals, as I guess we'll call them, they use a lot of means to, as they would say on TV, bounce their signal around. They use proxies and things like that so that you can't tell where it originated from or where they are located. And so for my own edification, a lot of times I'll try to determine where they're from just based on clues I get in the messages themselves. And sometimes, when you send an email and someone replies to it and it puts that message below and that little header says on this date so-and-so said, sometimes those will be in a foreign language. I had one that was from Poland. I had another one where I was able to trace the email or the IP address, and it appeared to be coming out of Malaysia. And then recently I had one where it was very interesting. The first few interactions I had, it very much looked like someone who was probably American, but was trying to make it sound like they were not. And then the further we got into discussion, they kind of just dropped all pretense. And some of it was using very Americanized patterns of speech and ways of writing. At one point in time, we had sent the files for them to decrypt, and they were having trouble decrypting them, and they were accusing our client of corrupting them in some way to make them look bad. And then they told me that we would owe them more money because they had to spend time over the weekend troubleshooting why they couldn't get the files to decrypt. And they literally said time equals money. And I thought, and the way they wrote it was just a very American way to say it. And, sometimes you can tell by where they put the dollar signs. But that attacker was interesting because I heard from them on a schedule. So if I watched the schedule, it was at the start of the workday on the West Coast, and then at lunch on the West Coast, and then at the end of the day on the West Coast. So
okay, so this is someone in Sacramento or Portland or Los Angeles.
And probably using a shared computer at work.
So I guess I had a couple kind of closing questions. One was, I noticed in what you were saying that some of your employees are women. Mm-hmm. And you're one of the bosses, your founder and CEO is a woman. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing that's not typical, but again, maybe I'm wrong. What's the ratio of kind of women in your company or mm-hmm. in this industry?
Well, I think our company is a bit unique. I think in our company we're about 50-50.
Wow.
Our executive team, there's 4 of us and 3 of us are women. And none of that's on purpose. It's just we try and find the best people for the job, and that's what happened. Mm-hmm. I've been very fortunate to meet some very strong and talented women throughout my career who have kind of mentored me and then led the way. And so speaking from my experience, there's always been several women everywhere I've worked. If I get on Twitter and I read various articles, I understand that that's not the case. And sadly, fewer women are going into technology and cybersecurity as a career, which I think is so unfortunate because it's an amazing career. It's fun. It's challenging. We kind of are surprised, I think, when people comment on, oh my gosh, you're a women-led cybersecurity company, because we don't even think about it anymore. We're just LMG.
I love it. Thank you so much, Karen. I really appreciate the time you shared with me today and the stories you shared.
Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed being on your show, and it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you again to Karen, who you can find at lmgsecurity.com or follow on Twitter at GRL_geek. Thank you to Furniture for our theme music, and thank you for listening. Please rate, review, and share this podcast with friends. And please join me again when I speak with Skylar Rampersad about digital warfare, the mindset of a black hat hacker, and being recruited by the NSA. That's next time on The Hacker Next Door.